Hi brothers and sisters, and welcome back to Lesson Gems. My name is Brother Lammers. We're going to be covering the lesson for Tuesday, November 14th, or on the Seminary teacher curriculum, the lesson that is labeled James chapter 1 verses 5 through 6, the Doctrinal Mastery lesson. So let's get right into it. The curriculum is so wonderful and so powerful. Brothers and sisters, you could start this lesson at the very beginning and use it as a script and go to the end, and it will be a Christ-centered, learner-focused, scripture-based lesson. And I love the curriculum for that fact. But I invite you to make it yours. Let me show you a couple of different ways that I make this lesson mine. And if you'd like some of these ideas, please use them. But again, make them yours. Do it your way. James chapter 1, verses 5 through 6, the Doctrinal Mastery lesson, is going to re-emphasize what you taught the day previous. So make sure that you've taught the scriptural or contextual lesson for James 1, 5 through 6, because it's going to emphasize this idea of asking God for wisdom and receiving His help personally, and how we can help ourselves and others do so, but then practice the doctrine behind it. One way that it asks you to start these things is helping your students understand that sometimes our friends are just a little bit different on how they practice their faith, if they practice their faith at all. Their concept of prayer may be very different. They may not pray to God personally or as their father or privately. There's just a lot of different ways, and help your students understand that prayer may look different for their friends. So if they understand that prayer may look different, they can understand that then they can approach this situation of teaching their friends that they can seek wisdom from God, and that is invited and encouraged by God Himself. Going into this next activity, don't be afraid of it. I know it kind of seems silly, but it's just a great way for them to attach a key phrase to the references. So grab this image that's right up here of the first vision, and if you can, if you're in a word building, or if you can just maybe print it out or even have it on an iPad or screen, you have it readily available. And if you have it available, I would set it up like this. I would say, every time we hold this up, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. And when I say 1, 2, 3, you are going to say this phrase. You can even have that phrase up on the board, but erase it because it's so simple. They'll get it the first time. Already? 1, 2, 3. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. And then periodically through the lesson, again, don't be afraid of this. I know it sounds silly. Periodically throughout the lesson, hold that up or hand it to a student. And when you point at the student, you're like, okay, Jeff, hold it up. Jeff, hold it up. 1, 2, 3. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. It's going to help them attach the Doctrinal Mastery reference verses to the key phrase so that it's not something separate or that they may not know. James chapter 1, verse 5 through 6. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. It's very silly, but it's an effective way to do so. The practice application is quite wonderful, but let me share with you a readiness that I would use as I am doing it. The practice application is designed to help our students use Joseph Smith as an example of someone who models acquiring spiritual knowledge. They're going to have you briefly review paragraphs 5 through 12, and then you're going to take questions and verses from the Joseph Smith history and compare them to the principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge as Joseph Smith as the model. So how I want to set that up is I want to ask them this readiness question. Remember, a readiness question is designed to unite your students and to have them on the same wavelengths or from the same starting point before you get into the content. And so as I unite my students, I'm going to ask them, have you ever gone to YouTube or the internet to learn how to do something? And you'll get hands up immediately and maybe ask one or two of them, well, what did you do? If you ask them the question, bring it now to the principles of why did you go to YouTube? Or why did you choose the specific video that you chose? They're going to tell you, well, there's 1 million views. Well, getting down to it, it had a master somebody doing something very well. So can we take that principle? What if we used Joseph Smith as a master of someone who learned how to ask God and to receive answers? So can we study Joseph Smith just like we were going to go to YouTube to learn from a master on how to do something very well? So let's set that up. Will you please open to Joseph Smith history, and let's go to verses right here as it says to study verses 8 and 11 through 17. Have that open on one side of on the table or on their desk. Then secondly, have in their journals Or if you don't remember where acquiring spiritual knowledge is, brothers and sisters, remember that you can get it right out of your Gospel Library app. So you go to Gospel Library and you go to Books and Lessons. If you go to Seminary, it's the very first one, right here, the core document. In that core document is where you have your acquiring spiritual knowledge, and it's paragraphs 5 through 12. So have the core document core document paragraphs and the Joseph Smith history open, and now go right into these questions because they're fantastic. Here's your look for. As you study this, consider marking each phrase that shows how Joseph was a model of acquiring spiritual knowledge. Use this, and then it even gets you into individual categories. Examine them with an eternal perspective. Act in faith. And then after you act in faith, you go the divinely appointed sources. Because it's such a great lesson, and it's such a way to study Joseph Smith and how he is a perfect example of acquiring spiritual knowledge. Good luck this week, brothers and sisters. I love this lesson. It is just fantastic in helping our students learn how to seek answers from Jesus Christ. My last insight that I'll share with you is, after they have done so, after they've studied Joseph Smith and how he received answers, ask them what it teaches you about Jesus Christ, knowing that he wants us to go to him for answers. What does that teach you about him, his characteristics, his love for us? Let them describe to you why it's awesome that Jesus Christ invites us to come to him with our answers, that he wants to talk to us. Help our students connect it just what we're doing, not just as a process or a method, but it's our God showing his love for us by inviting us to come unto him. You guys are amazing. You are doing so good. Keep it up, and we'll talk to you guys next week.